reducing fire risk, and promoting sustainable community growth. It will provide us with the resources we need to strengthen our sovereignty, ensure the safety and well-being of our people, and create a sustainable future for generations to come. Thank you for your time today, your attention, and your continued support of the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians.
Thank you, Chairwoman Quayle. And now I would ask the gentlelady from Washington State, Representative Randall, to introduce our next witness.
I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Councilperson Johnston for making the time to be here and traveling all the way across the country. Not only is it a 5 to 6 hour flight from Seattle, but Taholah to Seattle is also quite a journey. Councilperson Johnston serves as the elected fourth councilperson of the Quinault Nation Business Committee and Tribal Council, and has over a decade of elected experience for the Quinault tribe, and most recently was reelected as of April 2024. They serve as the chairperson of the Quinault Indian Nation's Natural Resources and Community Development Committee, and have been an incredible mentor and partner to me as I work to serve the Quinault Indian Nation and our shared constituents on the peninsula. I'm proud to have your leadership and expertise on this matter and look forward to your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the subcommittee, and really thank Congresswoman Randall for that introduction. My name is Tyson Johnston, and I'm proud to sit before you today. I'm here to testify on behalf of H.R. 2389, the Quinault Indian Nation Land Transfer Act. I've been elected to my business committee for over a decade now, and this work to repatriate this land back to the nation has been going on well before my tenure. So I stand on the backs of a lot of giants. The history of Allotment 1157 is very layered. The Quinault Indian Reservation was set aside for the Quinault Indian Nation for their exclusive use following the Treaty of Olympia of 1856, whereby the nation ceded millions of acres that it had freely roamed in exchange for a homeland and other benefits. Allotment 1157 was part of the Quinault Indian Nation Reservation when it was originally formed. In 1887, after the passage of the Dawes Act, which effectively broke the promises of the Treaty of Olympia and authorized lands that were communally held by tribes to be allotted to tribal members. As a result, the Quinault Indian Nation Reservation was partitioned into 2,340 parcels of 80 acres each, and assigned to individual tribal members ostensibly for agricultural use. However, the majority of the reservation was heavily forested and largely unsuitable for farming, rendering the intended purpose of these allotments impractical at best. On April 23, 1928, Allotment 1157 was issued to Ellen Heisman through a trust deed signed by President Calvin Coolidge. Under the Allotment Act, the United States of America held the property in trust for the allotted individual. This is the point in history where the land was taken from the Quinault Nation. On March 18, 1960, the Bureau of Indian Affairs facilitated the sale of the land and timber on Allotment 1157 from Ellen Heisman to Anderson and Middleton Logging Company for $59,000, thus alienating the property from the reservation. Mrs. Heath retained the mineral rights, and A&M took ownership of the property and fee status and managed it along with their other fee holdings on the Quinault Reservation for timber production. In 1993, A&M intended to harvest the old-growth timber, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as certain non-governmental organizations, objected to the harvest as it would remove habitat needed for the northern spotted owl, which had recently been determined to be threatened under the Endangered Species Act. In August 1996, the lawsuit was dropped in favor of the federal government working out a purchase from A&M. Using federal funds, a purchase of the trade transaction was facilitated through the Trust for Public Land, whereby the property was purchased from A&M in August 96 for $3.5 million and sold and transferred to the U.S. Forest Service for $3.8 million. Since 1996, the U.S. Forest Service has maintained ownership and management of this orphan property on the Quinault Indian Reservation. Allotment 1157 does not abut any other USFS property. The nation has endeavored to reacquire ownership of its reservation lands to manage as a whole for the benefit of the nation and its members, including being involved in a robust land acquisition program since the 1970s. Over time, the nation has purchased thousands of acres from 5 major timber companies, Grace Harbor County, and numerous fee and trust landowners. The nation currently owns approximately 51% of the acreage on the reservation and continues its efforts to consolidate land within the reservation for exclusive use of our citizens. Allotment 1157 represents one of the few remaining vestiges of old-growth forest, including ancient cedar trees, that once defined the Quinault Indian Reservation's landscape. This land holds profound cultural significance for our tribal members, serving as tangible connection to the heritage and ancestral lands of the nation. The Quinault people regard this land as sacred, a place to be safeguarded and preserved for the next 7 generations and beyond. The nation is committed to ensuring allotment 1157 is never commercially logged. The site contains remnants of cedar sticks and other materials left by ancestral carvers, which were historically used to guide canoe hulls safely in a salmon river. These canoes were then transported downriver to the main village for final completion. Upon reclaiming ownership of this land, the nation will have the opportunity to bring tribal members to this historic site, teaching them how their ancestors worked to sustain and honor their culture and heritage. The nation currently works with and reports with the U.S. Forest Service on activities affecting living species on the Quinault Reservation. Allotment 1157 will be part of these efforts and reports. In closing, the nation likes to thank the subcommittee for our time to address you today and urges you to support passage of H.R. 2389, the Quinault Indian Nation Land Transfer Act, out of committee. Thank you for holding this hearing to discuss this important legislation and for the opportunity to testify today. I'm happy to answer any questions upon a conclusion of our colleagues' testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Johnston. I now recognize the Honorable Yoch Bamford for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wahlberg, Ranking Member Ledger Fernandez, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Yoch Bamford, and I am the chairman of the Pit River Tribe. I am here with our lands director, Russell Ellick, and am honored to be here. I am here today to testify in support of H.R. 2400, the Pit River Land Transfer Act of 2025, a bill that would transfer more than 580 acres of federal land into trust for the benefit of our tribe, along with more than 40 acres of fee land that the tribe currently owns. On behalf of the Pit River Tribe, I want to thank Congressman LaMalfa for his sponsorship of this legislation and for his strong representation of the tribe during his time in Congress. The land that we propose to acquire in this trust through this legislation is known as the Four Corners property and is located between the town of Bernie and Fall River Mills in northeastern California. I would like to begin with a brief history of our nation and what the Four Corners land means to our people. The Pit River Tribe consists of 11 autonomous bands: the Ajamawi, Aporige, Astarowi, Otsage, Otwampsini, Hamawi, Hewasidawi, the Ilmawi, Estadawi, Coselecte, and the Madesi. For thousands of years, our people have maintained deep cultural ties to our ancestral lands, which are fundamental to our identity and our continued existence. Our historic lands are known as the 100-Mile Square, which is located in northeastern California near Mount Shasta in the Pit River watershed of eastern Shasta County, and parts of what is present-day Siskiyou, Lassen, and Modoc counties. Our nation has a strong connection to the Four Corners from both cultural and historical standpoints. The Four Corners is a central landmark of our ancestral lands that is intertwined with our history, identity, and how we will prosper for generations to come. The Four Corners also represents a pivotal and symbolic chapter in Indian activism and our people's constant struggle to fight for our sovereignty. During the 1960s and 1970s, members of our tribe, like others across all of Indian country, participated in efforts to reclaim their ancestral lands through what were meant to be peaceful demonstrations and occupations. In the wake of the Indian Claims Commission decision that unfairly established our reservation boundary, members of our tribe began occupying campgrounds and parcels of the Lassen National Forest and surrounding areas. which resulted in the arrest and subsequent trials for the activist. The most notable of these occupations occurred at the Four Corners, where several tribal members were arrested. We commemorate this event every year at the Four Corners property for its historic and cultural significance. Additionally, the tribe recently acquired 40 acres of land on the southeast corner of the Four Corners in fee status. The now tribally owned fee land is surrounded by the rest of the Four Corners property that is owned by the Forest Service. The Pit River Land Transfer Act is the culmination of more than 50 years of history between the Pit River Tribe and the Forest Service regarding the Four Corners lands. The legislation would transfer 580 acres of the Four Corners, including the original occupation site, into trust for the Pit River Tribe. The legislation would also transfer 40 acres of land held in fee by the tribe into trust status, though we anticipate removing that provision at markup. Acquiring the Four Corners land in trust for the benefit of our tribe through this legislation would enable our people to be the stewards of a historical site vital to our history and culture. The passage of H.R. 2400 is the top priority for the Pit River Tribe, and we appreciate the opportunity to appear here today and present our testimony. Thank you. I am happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Chairman. Now we'll lead into our 5 minutes of questioning from each of our committee members, and I know that Representative Randall has to leave soon, and with your special purpose here, let me recognize you for your 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that so much so that I can get to votes. But I want to thank you again, Councilperson Johnson, for your testimony and for really underscoring the historic path that this land has taken and the cultural relevance and importance to members of the Quinault Indian Nation. And, you spoke about, some of the significance and the cedar and the important way that you could use this land to safeguard not only the history, but to pass it down to future generations. And, you mentioned commercial logging, but I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about what further protections transferring this land into trust allow for your stewardship of the land, and how that allows you to preserve your culture and safeguard the land for the next 7 generations.
Thank you for that question, and I also want to humbly thank you for your advocacy and partnership on this legislative effort. I mentioned it a little in my testimony, the Dawes Act and the legacy of the fractionation of interests once lands were allotted to individuals has really decimated Indian country's ability to fully govern itself in one of our most, principal ways, which is regulating our land base. And so my reservation, being a legacy tribe of the allotment area, is one of the most fractionated in the United States, probably in the top 10%. And so what this checkerboard effect of ownership has created, whether that's private, individual Indian ownership, or what have you, it creates jurisdictional issues and overlapping that is problematic when you want to do simple acts of governance over our land base. And so with this area of land in particular, because of its cultural significance and ecological significance, by having it in trust and managed under the tribal side will allow us to better protect that land and make decisions that will preserve and enhance it in ways that aren't possible now. And so Quinault, is one of many tribes that, we have a very robust land program. And I heard Chairman also mention today too, the 50th anniversary of ISDIA. Quinault Indian Nation is a Tier 1 self-governance tribe under ISDIA when that was first passed as an opportunity, 638 contracting and self-governance compacting, and having that autonomy over our land really is more bang for the buck. It's more effective and allows for local control over really key areas of lands like ours. And I'm sure all of my sister tribes also as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I appreciate the space, Mr. Chairman, and yield my time back.
I thank the gentlelady, and I recognize myself for my 5 minutes of questioning. Chair Supernova, it's good to see you again. When we talked in Oklahoma City, we heard you testify about your tribe's land management programs, which were extensive. Let me ask this, had the Quapaw Nation been in charge of their land management programs all those years ago, as the problems developed and became transparent, how would things have gone differently?
Well, I can tell you it definitely would have been different, that's for sure. You know, when we think, would we have permitted the mines? I think we probably would have. You know, we're not opposed to mining, but would we have mined so irresponsibly that the earth collapsed beneath us? Not a chance, not a chance. When the town of Pitcher started experiencing, you know, such great instability that it forced a buyout of the residents so that it is now a ghost town with the exception of 8 residents that refused to leave, we wouldn't have allowed that to happen. Would we have dumped the toxic waste on our own farms and houses? No, no. Self-governance would have brought the decision-making back to the local level where we live. We would have never allowed things to get as bad as they did.
If you wouldn't mind, would you recite again why you were not allowed to do the change in the management you were declared as being?
I hope I'm answering the question that you posed.
It shocked me when I heard you say it before when we met.
So the BIA was responsible. In many cases, individual allottees or Quapaws were declared incompetent. At that point, the BIA had decision-making rights and the ability to execute mining leases without the individual landowner even being fully involved.
That was a shocking declaration that you shared with me, incompetent. Thank you. Honorable Cuellar, recently your tribe purchased land near your reservation, known as the Indian Creek subdivision. Have you attempted to put this subdivision into trust before? And if you have not, why?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. As of right now, we have not tried because we had just purchased it a couple years ago. We did not try before. And again, with the fee to trust process with the BIA, it is very bogged down. We've had a parcel actually waiting 10, 11 years just to be into trust, and we're still waiting. So this, to us, was the most fastest way we could get land to our members. Some of our members have unfortunately passed away waiting on a list for housing. And so this is a much faster way that we can provide housing for our membership. And I think, you know, bringing our membership back home very close to us to where we can offer the support services they need, that's the most important thing for us. And my council has prioritized housing for our membership. So this piece of legislation is so important to me and my membership to just bringing back our members.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Bamford, question. Have you tried to acquire the Four Corners with the Forest Service already?
Yes, thank you for that question. Back in 2013, we tried to work with the Forest Service through resolution to get the property, but through numerous staff turnover, both with the Forest Service and on the tribal side, it just wasn't able to come to life.
What's your general experience been as you've tried to go through that process?
My own self, I wasn't involved with the tribe back then. I came in after that, and coming in to where we were at, we were submitting everything on our side, but like I said, just the general turnover on the Forest Service side whether it got lost with the upper staff or wherever it was, it just wasn't able to come to life.
Putting this land into trust for your tribe, what would it mean to your tribe?
It would mean everything. That corner right there is a vital intersection of Highway 89 and 299. In the 40 acres that we currently own right there, we plan on having a truck stop of sorts right there with camping in an RV park. We plan for that to be a major economic hub for the tribe.
So it would be productive for your tribe to have that. Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I now recognize the ranking member, Ms. Ledger-Fernandez.
Thank you to each of you for telling the stories. And as I begin my comments today, this is a subcommittee whose job is to help remedy the historic injustices. And each of you provided an example of how that looks, and it looks both, in some ways, very different in each part of the country that you come from, but sadly also similar. But now we have this opportunity, and this is a space that if we could get these bills actually enacted into law, which is, I think, is what we'd like to do, is move them out of this subcommittee, move them down to the floor of the House, have them be unanimous, bipartisan, unanimous consent on the floor. That's like what my goal would be, right? But tell me, what would you then do next? Chairman Bamford, you did this beautiful history of how the struggles have been, how they included peaceful demonstrations, jailings, all kinds of stuff. It's not old history, it's recent history. How quickly would you be able to move if we moved quickly? Like, why should we move quickly so that you can do what you need to do?
Yes, thank you for that question. We plan on, with those other 3 corners that we're looking at receiving from the Forest Service, one of them having on the actual occupation site, cultural center right there that we could tell the story of our people and share it with the community. Because there's people of the area right there that don't know the history, just general members of the community. When we're actually holding our events out there, people are driving by and they're just flat interested of what's going on out there, and they're showing their support for us right in that capacity. So that's just one of the corners. On the other side, we look at actually having a California Welcome Center where we, in collaboration with the California State Parks, have parking area designated, because Bernie Falls is 5 miles up the road from us. Right there, and they always have a problem with parking out there. So if we could collaborate with them and provide a safe space for parking so families are not in harm's way parking alongside the highway right there.
Thank you. I just want to be able to get others. Chairman Quapaw, you also have issues of making sure that people hear the stories and share the stories and be curious about others and your own tribe. How quickly could you move, and why is it important that we move quickly?
Well, thank you for the question, and it's so important to move quickly, because I have quite a long list of people waiting for housing. I have 188 members waiting for housing. So this subdivision could knock out about 80 of them. So that's a big number to us, and like I said, housing is important to me, and it's important to the membership to bring our members closer home. So.
Councilman Johnston, I mean, you guys have a lot of big plans for what you want to do. Why should we move quickly?
This area of land is very sensitive. It holds really important cultural significance and resources that are at risk. Fires even become a reality in my part of the country. And so having this kind of jurisdictional enigma end and put it under the tribal jurisdiction at the local level will allow us to manage that resources in the highest and most effective way, regenerating our culture and protecting the ecology of this land with the rest of our land base. It just makes sense, and it's better governance.
Right, and we have really great bipartisan agreement on the importance of having tribes manage their own land, of strengthening the 638. Chair Superna, I mean, the struggles that you have gone through with your tribe on this land are kind of unique from the other three, because they were like, we lost the land, we want to get it back. The land was destroyed. You need to get it back. Share with us why we should move quickly.
Thank you for the question. The reason that we should move quickly is from the time this settlement was actually struck, or the decision made out of the Court of Federal Claims, we have literally lost 200 tribal members. Now, that would have been during the epidemic, but many of these tribal members who were elders were key players in providing family documents, allotment documents, and other documents that proved pivotal in proving our case to the Court of Federal Claims. We're going to keep losing them.
Right. And there is something about, I mean, justice delayed, justice denied, but there's something about the living history and being able to acknowledge that we are sorry and we apologize, and this claim settlement is a tangible, something you can hold and put in the bank as well, but that's what it reflects, is we recognize we blew it. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and with that, I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady, and I thank the members of the panel for the distance you traveled to be here, the history that you gave us, but more importantly, the human experience that you expressed across the table to us today. So thank you very much. Members of the committee may have some additional questions for each of you, and so we'll ask if you would respond in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit questions to the committee clerk by 5 p.m. on Monday, May 5th, 2025. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for those responses. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
Thank you.